The culprit had hit the electrical box with a 1-gallon jug of piss. He was on the offensive, toying with us, even leaving a demonic smiley face as a taunt. This left Grant and I feeling cornered and out of moves. But there was one play that lingered in the back of our heads, a Hail Mary of sorts, something many of the pissheads online had been suggesting throughout this entire saga, a stakeout. This was a very risky ploy, and something that couldn't be taken lightly. We were dealing with an individual who places 1-gallon jugs of urine on an electrical box at 4 in the morning. Who knows what else he was capable of? So Grant and I started to brainstorm some ways to move forward with a full-on live stakeout. Unfortunately, I was ruled out of every scenario, mainly because being a black man in Pasadena idling in the car after sundown would have the cops called in a matter of minutes. So it all fell on Grant's shoulders now, which he was very confident about moving forward with the task. But I had my doubts. Grant was one of those guys who just, he's just one of those guys. But he was trying to prove himself. He was persistent, and I could tell that he really wanted to be the one to catch the piss culprit and interview him. Even though he was adamant about doing the stakeout, I didn't feel comfortable putting Grant in a situation where his life could be at risk. I needed to see for myself that he had the ability to tackle this alone. So I set up a staged piss electrical box scenario. We were able to achieve an almost exact replica of the location using a bunch of junk from Grant's warehouse, as well as various faux piss bottles made from our green tea mixture. I then had my friend Ian, who was a trained actor, meet up and play the role of the piss culprit. In order to embody the character and his motivations, I had Ian study the plethora of footage that we captured with the Reveal X Pro Cellular Trail Camera. Then we did a couple of run-throughs as him as a piss culprit, strategically placing the piss bottles on our prop electrical box. Ian was a pro and immediately had me sold on him playing the part for our dry run operations. Now, it was Grant's turn to show me that he had what it took to confront the culprit. Our first scenario was if Grant wore a ghillie suit to blend into the adjacent bushes beyond the wall. Then he'd reveal himself.
Hey.
But this was quickly shot down because it would be too startling for the culprit. Our second scenario focused on creating a large enough space between Grant and the culprit. So we had him approach from the street side. But even with that distance, Grant was still met with reactive hostility. Grant wasn't necessarily having a good time. But fortunately, Ian was able to break character and talk some sense into him in regards to how important these simulations were to our investigation. After a quick breather, Grant was back on board. We approached our third scenario differently and had Grant implement an aggressive tactic, hoping to scare the culprit into submission.
Yo, motherfucker. Let's go with this shit.
But unfortunately, this backfired, and Grant was met with extreme physical and mental punishment. After witnessing this train wreck, I had zero faith in Grant and knew there would be no way that he could successfully pull off a stakeout. We were back to the drawing board. I figured the only way we could confront the culprit in real time was with an actual security camera that we could speak through. So I did a bit of research online and settled with the Reolink Go PT Plus, a state-of-the-art piece of machinery with two-way audio and a 360-degree pan-tilt access. The only thing we needed to be worried about was the culprit stealing the camera again. We needed a vantage point from above. So I reached out to my motorcycle friend Robin, who also moonlights as a subpar carpenter, hoping he would have some tools, or at least a ladder, which he did. The next day, Robin and I headed to the worksite as a couple construction workers who owned a ladder. From there, Robin was able to ascend above the wall and secure the Reolink Go PT Plus to a bundle of tree branches using a sturdy zip tie securing system. Our new eye in the sky was set. Now all we needed was the piss culprit to strike. A week had passed with no action. I knew he'd strike again, but it was just a matter of when, and if Grant and I would be awake to interview him, especially since his previous hits had been at 4 a.m. Then one evening, while visiting my folks' place and listening to my dad's long-winded explanation for his love for CBS, my phone was alerted. It was the Reolink Go PT Plus. Finally, we had him in our crosshairs, the piss culprit, in the act of placing a fresh batch of bottles. This was the first time witnessing his actions live, and now I had the capabilities of communicating with him. I zeroed in and took my shot.
I don't know what to do.